Welcome to another episode of Patio Pondering. Today I'm continuing my discussions with friends of mine from Ag Twitter that I met over the last decade or 12 years, and they're connections that I never thought would turn into the friendships that we have. Today I have Corey Hillebo from Polk City, Iowa. He's actually joining us from Slater, which is really funny because we lived in Perry, which is close to Rippey, and about 35 miles away from where you farm and where you're sitting right now, Corey.
That's correct. Yeah, Perry's not too far. And if our John Deere store in Madrid doesn't have the part, that Perry is where we go.
That Van Wall group has sure changed.
Yeah, it has. It's grown a lot.
Corey is a fourth-generation farmer. As I said, he farms around Polk City, Iowa, there on the bluffs of beautiful Saylorville Lake, right?
Yeah, well, Big Creek Lake actually sits above Saylorville, a man-made lake that you can see the lake from the farm.
Okay.
Yep. So my grandpa actually used to farm in the bottom of that lake.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
As I mentioned, I met Corey on Ag Twitter. We have a mutual connection in Snarkosaurus that we share stories about and get together, particularly at Iowa Pork Congress. Or not Iowa Pork, but World Pork Expo.
Yep.
The neat thing about Corey, not only did we meet on Twitter and he farms, but he and his partners have just made a juggernaut with their Farm4Profit and Farm4Fun podcasts. We'll get into that. Corey, could you kind of give us an idea of your farm operation and how it's evolved over the years?
Yeah, so for perspective, I'm 36 years old. Oh, shoot, I'm almost 37. I don't know. When this airs, it'll probably be 37. My birthday's next week. Farm right here in central Iowa, Polk City. I live in Slater, but we have corn, soybeans, a couple thousand acres of both of those. And then my ticket back to the farm actually was 2013, and we got into wean to finish hogs and bought an existing site. I always enjoyed the livestock side of things, but we live in Polk County. And Polk County is a no-fly zone for CAFOs, certified or concentrated animal feeding operations. And so I just never thought it was in my cards to do that. And this opportunity came up to buy an existing site that was in Boone County, just 6 miles north of the original farm. And in 2013, I'm not kidding you. I had a list of things. What could I get back to the farm? I wanted to come back to the farm. Aronia berries, custom spraying, hogs, all this stuff. And that the hogs are what brought me back. And they're the things I cuss almost daily. But I still am so thankful that we have them. We finally got the barns paid off in 23. And it's a little scope of our farm. We're just getting baby pigs right now, too.
So you were 25 when you bought the pig barns-ish?
Yeah, 25-ish if math does. Yeah, that's about 25.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Math does work. Okay.
Yeah.
I have the joy of being completely sober, unlike you from the night before.
Well, yeah. Not often do we hit the beer or the bourbon too hard. If we do, it's usually one or two. But when Zach Johnson comes to town and says he wants to, because we didn't plan it at all, and he says he wants to hop on a podcast and wants to have some drinks, watch the USA versus Canada hockey game, I guess that's what you do.
That's what you do. So for context, I came into the house from checking U's about 11 o'clock, so it's 10 o'clock Central.
Yeah.
I flip on my phone. I'm going to read a book, try and finish the book I've been reading for the last month and a half. And I go through TikTok and it says Farm4Profit Live. Well, oh my gosh, what's going on in Slater?
Yeah, we haven't been live. We used to go live all the time on TikTok and we haven't. And we're like, hey, let's just turn this on. Well, that was a bad idea because 3 hours later, we ended up getting banned. Our whole TikTok account was taken down. Over 100,000 followers. We're trying to get it back. We'll see. But they said it's permanently banned. So
well, it's TikTok. We thought it was gone a month ago too. So
yeah, when co-host and owner of the podcast Tanner called me at 6 a.m. this morning, which wasn't a welcomed call at 6 a.m. I was up, but said, "Oh, we screwed up." And I said, and I immediately my mind went to the worst thing. And then he said, "We got our TikTok taken down." I'm like, "Oh, like." Big deal. We thought it was going to be gone a month ago, so yeah.
You came back to the farm at 25 with the wean to finish pigs. So what were you doing right before that?
So I went to college at Iowa State University, graduated in the winter of 2009, so going into 2010 in agronomy and ag studies. And I immediately went to work for, it was kind of a hybrid role between co-op and Helena Chemical, and kind of promoting their proprietary products. So that was kind of like the first kind of, getting into foliar feeds and, that micronutrients, that kind of stuff. Did that for a short year and immediately knew I didn't want to spend my time or the rest of my career at that particular co-op or in that particular role. And I'd had several experiences in the seed industry through internships at college, and I really wanted to work for Pioneer. Had a local Pioneer guy that I'd helped, and just loved my time in those internships. I thought it, right here in Johnston, Iowa, just down the road, thought it was a stand-up company, and that's where I wanted to go. So I took a job. It was called their Impact, which was some acronym for something. But I took an Impact role and ran their research year 4 and 5 for corn and soybeans. We basically managed plots, probably 100 plots, planted from planting, getting the seed ready, to sourcing where the plot was going, to taking notes, and then going to the meetings with the sales guys and sharing our views and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed the seed side of things. I was living in Webster City, which is about an hour north of where the farm is. So just far enough that if you were going back to the farm, you better have a reason. You weren't just going to bop down there, see what was going on.
So those impact plots, those are like the year or two before they get commercialized, right? That's the yes or no?
Yep. Yeah. So basically it's a 8-row. Well, at the time, I don't know what they are now. It was an 8-row by 40-foot long, and we'd harvest the center 4 rows. And it was, we were testing that 4th year of research. Basically, once they get to 4th year, you kind of know they're a pretty good hybrid, and they're putting them up against commercial hybrids that are in Pioneer's line, putting up against competitors. And it's, if you're into statistics, it was a very good statistic. The correlation value is very low. Was a very good way to test because we had diagonal checks all across, and cream would rise to the top. We'd really get good notes on it out there.
Well, that's neat. The only reason I'm asking, there's impact plots just south of me that my Pioneer dealer uses, so it's neat to hear somebody that actually worked in those.
Yeah, it was cool. We had, before the 2020 derecho, there was actually some other derechos that came through Iowa, and I got to be a part of one of those through some of these plots. And it was really cool to see, actually take the scores, that these breeders put on these hybrids and go out there and go, okay, so this is what a 7 looks like, and this is what a 5 looks like. It was, that part of it I kind of nerded out on.
Well, and Pioneer and wind are two things that have a negative connotation in Iowa.
That is true. I've found that really came from the late 90s, early 2000s, it seemed like, and that has kind of stuck with them. I don't think it's, which I don't sell Pioneer now. I do sell seed, but not Pioneer. I don't think that they should have that, but it is kind of fun just to kind of jab people at what they were known for.
Just a funny fact, we were going down to Quincy when I worked at ADM north of Des Moines, and we were on 218. So this is before the Avenue of Saints was 4-lane all the way through. Mm-hmm. And we were down by Washington, so south of Iowa City, and there was somebody had that 4-foot by 8-foot Pioneer sign, and piled up in front of it were piles and piles of down corn. And another sign said, "Thank you, Pioneer." It was so this is 2001, 2.
I really enjoyed, I think it was on Twitter 5 or 6 years ago when someone was complaining about Pioneer corn being down, and then one of their third-party people came on and says, "Thanks for sharing the photo," and was trying to interact with them and stuff. And it was no, you don't get it. That was not a good post for that.
No. Yeah. That was not a good thank you for sharing. So you spent a couple years there at Pioneer, and then Barn came available?
Yep. It was April 19th, I think, of 2013. We purchased it at auction, and we didn't close until late that summer. So I actually stayed on through planting season and through June, I think. So first part of notes and all that. Didn't want to leave them hanging. And it was a good thing I left because they ended up getting rid of that role and absorbing that because I was north central Iowa, and they just kind of northwest and northeast kind of just came to the middle and overtook there. So
serendipity.
Yeah.
So you're feeling kind of the quintessential Iowa farm boy path of using hogs to get back on the farm.
Yeah, and like I said, I never thought that would have been an opportunity. And the conversations that my dad and grandpa and I had before coming back was, hey, think of 2012, right? We had the big drought and we had $7-8 corn. We had over 200 bushel corn that year, because our ground is so wet.
Yeah.
And so we were doing pretty good. And there was not a place on the farm for me. Grandpa was still fairly active, involved in farming at the time. Dad was just kind of taking over the reins, and it just didn't look like it. Well, when the pigs came up, that was my opportunity.
I would assume you got into it a little less than the typical build a brand new quad barn.
Yeah, so it not less in terms of head. We were 4,050 head space is what we call it. It's 3 old Heartland Ag, which would have been Bruce Rastedter's building company. 3 Heartland Ag sites that were built in 1998, and so they were natural tunnel, so they had curtains on the side, curtains on the end, and then we could run them in tunnel as well. We actually just remodeled and we put solid sides on them, which I'm very thankful for this week, filling with baby pigs and watching LP still go out the door, but it's got to be a lot better than it was with curtains on the side.
Oh, geez, I can imagine that. An R value of 2, 3.
Yeah, I don't even know if you would give it much. And plus, it's a curtain, so I don't care how far you overlap the wall. It's still wind coming down the top of it.
Oh yeah, so, in this weather, you still have that frost and that ice on the corners and the sides, and that doesn't suck.
It's kind of crazy to think about those barns. They're 26, 27, going on 27 years old here, and they've raised a lot of pork throughout the years.
And this is your 3rd remodel or 2nd remodel?
So we remodeled in 2013 when we took it over, and they were original gates. We actually kept the gates. They were small pen setups, and we fed for mash-offs out of Illinois, and we went to their large pen setup. So we just kind of cherry-picked the best gates and just kept them in. Did it on the cheap. We put new controllers in, and redid waters and feed lines, some of that kind of stuff. But I think we bought the site for like $125 a space, and we ended up putting $165, $175 a space, at the end. Which, shoot, right now seems like a deal because you can't build a barn for $400 a space.
It wasn't that long ago. We were talking $500 or $600 a space.
Right. Yeah.
That was when we weren't building any buildings either.
Yeah. And all the materials, lumber was so high and all that. So it kind of absolutely crazy. And to tell you the truth, rent hasn't gone up once.
No.
In our lifespan. So.
Well, and that's an interesting point because Todd Thurman and I were talking about that when I had him on. He worked for Cargill in the early 2000s, and those barns are still getting $42 to $45 a pig space 25 years after we started at $45 a pig space.
Yeah.
And we went from $150 a pig space to $400 a pig space to build. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's crazy. And then throw interest on top of it. And, we used to be able to pay barns, which I've never built a new hog barn. This is me just talking because I got friends that have. You used to be able to pay one off in 7 to 10 years, and then it was 10 to 15, and now it's 20. And that's not even taking much out for cash flow. And it's like, boy, I know how these barns are being built. At 20, you're remodeling, and it's not cheap.
You're rebuilding at 20 if you took care of it.
Right.
And the other thing that's changed over those years is the impact of the manure in that financial statement.
Yes.
When those barns were built that you have, manure was, hey, you get this stuff too. Now, you have to consider the value of the manure. That makes the $45 worthwhile.
Right. Which, what was it, 21 or whatever, when fertilizer was so high? I actually did the math on the NPK sulfur values, and it was over $400 of value that we were getting for the manure that we were putting on. And we're not putting on a full shot. We're trying to spread it out over as much
4,000, 5,000 gallons?
3,000 to 4,000, depending on whether it's corn on corn or not. But I've dropped my rates, and I'm trying to supplement more nitrogen through different passes with the planter or wide drops and things like that. And I would rather get the goodie, the organic matter and all the micros spread over more acres. I find that we get not just that first year, but on rotated ground, the beans even, take it the next year. And so that's really worked out well for us.
Well, and nitrogen's easy to put on. That organic matter and the microbes from the manure isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And what we found, the reason we bought wide drops was because, like a novice in 2014, when we started applying fertilizer, we're like, oh yeah, this is the nitrogen rate in the, 62 pounds per 1,000 gallons. So let's just put our 180 pounds on and let's go. And, it was ugly. It was ugly. I'm sure people told us not to do that, but I don't know why we, thought it was going to be okay. So it's like emergency wide drops. We have to get, the damage is already done, but it made you feel better to go.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Make it pass.
Look what we did. Nitrogen out there. Yeah. Yep.
How do you work with your dad and your grandpa, and how does that all work together in your farm?
Yeah, so Grandpa has aged out. Him and my grandma, he got Parkinson's in the late teens there, and he got rear-ended and had some back surgeries. Just and that really slowed him down. They're doing well, but they moved to town to an assisted living facility because Grandma just couldn't take care of him anymore, and which they complain about. But then we go there and we say, you want to come back to the farm? And they're like, nah, we're good here. But
we're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. They're coming out tomorrow, actually, we got several birthdays. Like I said, mine, they're coming out tomorrow, for that. Yeah. So they still get out. Yeah. So, but he's not around. My dad is 66, almost 67, and he just had back surgery. He's kind of the bionic man. Very, very sharp. He was on the leading edge of technology. I mean, as soon as auto steer came out, and he was always using different programs and softwares for, farm finances and that stuff. So he's the guru when it comes to that kind of stuff. But his body doesn't let him work like he used to.
Okay.
And
is he the one you called to fix the camera, speaker, mic setup?
No, that was Tanner. That was Tanner. Okay. Which I'm, we had some technical audio visual difficulties before we started. I don't sit in this seat. I sit in the seat to the left. I'm like the co-pilot. Like I can push a button if needed, if told, but like I never hook anything up.
Okay.
That was the reason I wanted to get a studio, so we could just standardize it, so I could just come in and plug in. Well, but then there was a tornado that came through here last night, so nothing was.
Yeah, everything's messed up. Yeah, the tornado from Minnesota, right?
Yeah, it was.
When you were at Pioneer, was your desire to come back to the farm, or was it just, hey, this hog barn's open, this is an opportunity?
Yeah, I used to I couldn't sleep because I was trying to figure out how I could get back to the farm, how I could carve my own way. I never wanted to, just come back because that's how it was going to be. That's what I didn't want to use daddy's money or whatever, a lot of people say on social media. Like I honestly wanted to carve my own way. And that's why the hogs was so like enticing to me. I was like, this is my own thing, right? Like I sought it out. I went to the bank. I ran all the numbers, the cash flows and all that. Like it wasn't just like, hey dad, give me a salary to come back. And, but I did. I had a list of things I wanted to grow. The other thing I did when we came back with the hogs was I put that 15 acres of tillable into aronia berries, which was a complete flop. But to tell you how much I wanted to do it on my own, my grandpa he loved that idea. He wanted to invest in that. He wanted to find something else that we could grow besides corn and soybeans. And I wouldn't let him because I said, Grandpa, this is high risk. Like I don't need your $60,000 that you want to throw at this, if this has a very high likelihood to fail and I want to fail myself. And so, Yeah, I did that. It was a flop. It was a great experience. But, yeah.
When I ask ChatGPT about you, it brings up the aronia berries.
Really?
Yes, it
That's
does.
interesting. There's some articles out that was on it and stuff. I believe in the science behind it. The antioxidants and things of that nature. I mean, Poland and Eastern Europe has figured it out. It's very healthy. It's the highest antioxidant berry in the world, or one of them, if not. It's like 4 times higher than blueberries. It's right up there with the acai and goji berries. It's, very healthy. And we did sell 1 year's worth of crop. We actually finally got paid. There was a lot of just bad actors in that were kind of, scheming around it. I think it'll get there. Every time we got close, Poland would flood the U.S. with cheap.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, because they've been growing them for 40 plus years. So,
Well, it's a neat story. It's a story you could tell your kids and your grandkids.
I learned a lot, and honestly, it is very emotional to get out of it, right? Because everyone liked to drive by and see them, and it was kind of picturesque, right? There was hog barns there, which are, kind of frowned upon sometimes out in the countryside. And then this beautiful vineyard looking area, in front of it. And it really gave it a nice vibe. But at the end of the day, I can't just keep throwing money at this stuff. What, opportunity costs, even if it's to make $100 an acre on corn, we might as well have corn there. So,
yeah. And it's a lot easier too.
Well, it is. But I mean, I truly, I was so passionate at that time of any entrepreneurial activity that involved farming. I would have done anything. And I went to the school of hard knocks there. I quickly learned that, okay, that was fun, but now you have to make some money, or else you can't do this. You can't do this forever.
That's that money you had saved is now gone.
Yeah. That's why we say if you're not farming for profit, you won't be farming for long, and a lot of people kind of laugh at that. It's like, oh, you make a profit farming? Like, shoot, you better.
Yeah. Well, and we could spend multiple podcasts talking about the profit and cash accounting and taxes, but we still got to make money. That's for sure. So does the Busch Light Combine fall into that entrepreneurial spirit? That was a completely right place, right time deal. At that point, that was that COVID? That was 2020, I think. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of friends in a lot of different areas, and one of them called one day, and I was like, is one of them like, oh boy, what's this phone call? I haven't talked to this guy for a year or two. He remodels bars, and I knew he was on a job in Des Moines, and he was calling. He's like, hey, Anheuser-Busch is here, and they said John Deere doesn't want to wrap a combine in Busch Light, so they're looking for a farmer. I thought of you. I'm like, you want to wrap your combine in Busch Light? I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. Like, yeah, get them on the phone. So next week they came out and it was kind of crazy. For a company that's so big like that, it was a handshake deal. They paid however much the wrap was, like $6,000. They paid a company to come out and do it at the farm. And they paid the monetary benefit of that was a year's supply of Busch Light. Guess how much a year's supply of Busch Light is? A case a week?
2 cases a month.
Obviously, he doesn't know an Iowa farmer.
No. So they show up with this, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. It did kind of obviously give me some clout, especially on TikTok. I put that at first, we're not a very big farm. We don't farm by the interstate. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to wrap a semi trailer or something like that's going to be out on the road, like a moving billboard and all that? I just could not wrap my head around why they would put this, in my lap. There's way better farmers to do that with. And then I put it out there on social media, and I think the first video I did got 2 million, 3 million views. And I go, oh, I get it. I get it now. That's eyeballs. That's what they want. That's why they put a billboard out there, so.
For 24 cases of Busch Light.
Yeah. And it was
Were they 24s or 30s?
24s. Yeah. Yeah. So there was some other cool benefits that came with it. It was a 2-year deal, handshake, no contract. Their only deal was they didn't want me to sell it with the wrap on it. And there was probably 6 or 7 other Busch Light combines that I eventually found out, throughout the state and Missouri and Nebraska, I think. But I was really the only one that was putting it on social media and really getting the views there. But I got a lot of cool opportunities to go to like parades and we ended up going down. They paid to go down to the IndyCar race in Newton and take it there. And the biggest probably hurdle we had in the beginning before we did it was Dad was on board with it. Grandpa, who wasn't really involved in the farm at that point, was a little reserved, but he was okay. But we were really worried about a few landlords. And so we made that call ahead of time. And honestly, it was well received. They were like, hey, that's your space. If you can sell it for, what you want, we don't care, So after we had that conversation, they were on board and we were on board. But the coolest part about it was talking to kids and people at like the IndyCar race or in these parades. They'd come up to me, Busch Light drinkers, and they'd want to get a picture and they'd go, what is this thing? They had no idea what it was, even here in Iowa. And I'm like, this is a combine. It combines corn. They're like, oh yeah, I've seen these things in the field. Like I didn't know what they did, And so like, it was kind of like a weird way to advocate, if you will, like to talk about what you do. So I literally would have people like, it was like they would break their neck when they drove by and we were harvesting and they'd be like, what is that? And almost go in the ditch. It almost got to be a hazard. We'd have people pull in the field drives and try to get pictures.
Really?
And all. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Yeah.
And you had that for 2 years?
Let's see, 20. No, we had it 3 years because it was 23 that we upgraded. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was a big deal. You pulling the wrap off.
Yeah, it was kind of sad. Which I saw other Busch Light combines sell, and I thought, I guarantee you they had the same talking to that I did, but they didn't care. And I watched. It didn't bring it any more value. So to me, it was like, well, it's kind of sad that I have to take it off, but it's not like I'm losing a $10,000 bump in sales price. So.
But the difference between you and them, I bet, is your social media influence, because you could turn that into a big production.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we have. It's been crazy. I mean, that was just I wasn't on the podcast quite yet, or was I? I might have just started on the podcast when that came, but they were two separate things, right? That eventually actually came together. Yeah, it was. They didn't come to me because I was on a podcast at that time. I mean, early 2020. I mean, they had the Farm4Profit podcast started in June of 2019. It was Dave and Tanner, and I think they had 100 or 150 downloads a week at that time. So. I mean, not huge for them. And then I came on and we kind of
took off like a rocket.
Yeah. It
Thank you, Corey.
It honestly did.
Is the combine what made you on social media, or is it the podcast?
I would say the combine helped the trajectory. And when I got on the podcast, we didn't have a podcast social media. I think we might have had a Facebook, that we put out shows, didn't put any effort into it. We were actually promoting it through our personal channels. And so mixed the podcast content in with some of the combine content and just kind of got this cool recipe. I'd always been on Facebook. I'd always been on Twitter. Never really was an Instagram guy, but probably what really promoted the combine in my personal socials was TikTok when we got on there. And how there is a community on Twitter and an ag community, ag Twitter. That it was a different feeling, but it was something cool on TikTok that was forming, and it just felt like the new place to be. And we just kind of rode it for a while. I mean, heck, it was COVID. What else could we do? We didn't have anything. We couldn't go see our friends or anything like that. So we might as well do a podcast and might as well hop on TikTok, and because everyone says we shouldn't.
Well, I was really late to TikTok and on the downturn of Farm Talk.
Yeah.
So I did get to see it. I get glimpses of it, but it feels like Ag Twitter did a decade ago.
Yeah, and honestly, it's TikTok is not where it was 3 or 4 years ago. It was so fun. I mean, you could put some stupid video out and get so many millions of views and 10,000 followers. You can't do that anymore. Or if you do, like it's 1 in 100 videos type of deal. So yeah.
Well, I notice it on Twitter. I'll put something on, and it would be easy for me to get 100 responses 10 years ago. And now it'll be the bots from Eastern Europe asking me for a date.
I had my best tweet a week or two ago when I asked Elon and Doge to go after emissions and DEF, and I think I had over 2,000 likes or something like that. Which I was like, "Holy cow, that's a lot for Twitter."
That is, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So if we can go back to your youth, you grew up there in Polk County. So what high school did you go to?
I went to North Polk. High school was in Alleman. Yeah, so it'd be Alleman, Elkhart, Polk City, Sheldall would be the school.
So that north tier of Polk County.
Now it's North Ankeny. There's literally housing developments in Ankeny that are North Polk School District. Yeah, it was 2A when I graduated in 2006. It was 2A. I had 72 in my class. Had a great FFA program. So very, very rural at the time that I went there. You know, my parents went to North Polk, and my aunt and, you know, a lot of family went there. My grandma and grandpa even went to that school. So, yeah, a lot of history.
So when you were a kid on the farm, did you just do normal farm kid stuff?
Yeah. I mean, shoot, first tractor I ever drove, well, do you consider a lawn tractor?
Yes.
A John Deere 425. That was probably the first tractor I drove. Yeah. But then after that was a 4020 power shift that my grandpa owned that we still have. I helped on the farm, but I'm going to say I had this feeling like all my friends were in town, and town was about 6 miles away. And I love sports. I played a lot of sports. I didn't do like the travel balls or anything. I was just, you know, town ball type stuff. But my friends, I'd go to sports and practice, and I'd hear my friends talking about what they did. You know, they went up to the library. There's a big hill in Polk City. They'd, you know, slide down it with, you know, sleds or something the night before. And I just felt like I was missing out. And so I would say I wasn't that passionate. I enjoyed spending time with my dad, my grandpa, going out in the field. I mean, at 12, I was probably helping in the grain cart, but still feeling like I just want to go hang out with my friends. And once I was able to get a little bit older, I think it was when I was 14, my parents would let me, there's a bike trail through the state park that I could ride my bike into town. And once I did that a few times, I quickly found out I wasn't missing much. And that's when I really started liking the farm. I mean, I was always in 4-H and, you know, doing cattle and hogs and chickens and stuff, SAE projects, once I got into FFA. But that was, once I figured that out, that I wasn't missing that much, that's when I really dove into the passion of ag, I would say.
So that was seeing what you thought you were missing and really weren't missing was kind of the switch?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I started going in there, and then, you know, okay, that was fun. You know, I still got good friends, but then you'd hear they'd get in trouble for doing stupid stuff or whatever. And like, I never did. Like, I thank the farm for that. Like, it kind of kept me out of it. Like, I had a good head on my shoulders because of it. So a lot of life lessons you learn early on when you don't even know you're learning.
Well, did you have the experience where your friends were not allowed to do something because it was so dangerous or out of the realm of normal, and you were like, oh, what's the big deal? I do that at home.
Yeah, I had some friends, definitely city friends, that they would come out and like ride a 4-wheeler, and they were like looking around like, are you sure your parents are okay with this? And it's like, yeah, man, we ride this thing around all the time. And then he literally drove square into the pump house and knocked it off its foundation. So I saw him come around the corner, and one of the tires was like, it wasn't off the rim, but it was low. You know, it was pretty almost flat, and so he couldn't turn it. And I'm like, just let off the gas. And he just drove right into it. Dad was pissed. Yeah, it always involved a 4-wheeler or a creek. You know, I would always end up just submerged head to toe in a creek, no matter what time of year it was. Or, my friends would come over and all of a sudden the four-wheeler's wrecked, so.
That's funny.
Funny.
So for my son, it was mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
He had friends in high school, their parents wouldn't let him mow the yard because it was too dangerous, and here was Toby running combine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely different, our upbringing we give our kids with some responsibility.
It is crazy, and I live in town now, which is Slater, right? So it's a very small town. I have a cornfield on two sides of me, so it feels rural. But I mean, I am in town. I'm not, and I have two girls, and I'm not giving them that farm upbringing. And when we moved to town in 2019, I thought it was going to be a 2 or 3 year deal. Well, 2.25% interest says otherwise, and I'm handcuffed to it, which my wife's a city girl. My girls are real girly girls. They enjoy it. We have 5 parks, a pool. There's a bar, restaurant. There's a grocery store, gas station. I mean, there's a lot to do in town. So when I'm busy, they can hop on the golf cart because golf carts are legal here in Slater, and they can drive anywhere, and they enjoy it. So it's like, well, I'm just not going to fight it, I guess.
And then how long a drive is it to the pig barns and to the farm?
Pigs is like 3 minutes, and the farm is like 8 or 9. So I'm kind of right in between them. Yeah, I'm right in between them. So
that's not bad.
No, it works out well. I mean, we lived out at the hog site. We have a house out there. We lived out there we remodeled that house. We lived there from 2013 to 2019 when we moved into town.
So they had the experience. So that's a balance you have to have as a parent. And
yeah, and I take them out to the farm with me when I'm doing stuff, or they come out and see the baby pigs and help me out there. So they're still getting it. They're just not living and breathing it, whether they want it or not. Type of a deal.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice. You do for them. Yeah.
Yep.
So how old are they?
Almost 9 and almost 5.
Oh, so she's just about ready for grain cart, right?
Yeah. I look at like just a Jackson thing. I'm sure you've seen his stuff. He's a 9-year-old, and I would trust him in a grain cart. I don't know if I would trust my 9-year-old daughter, but she is smart. I tell you what she does like. She loves flying my drone. She geeks out on that. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll bring that home, and we'll go fly at night, and she loves flying that thing.
Have you thought about how you could incorporate that into her helping you on the farm? Or is she too young?
It's definitely crossed my mind. I mean, it's clear, obviously these kids are growing up with a lot more technology than I had at that age. Our technology was maybe a Super Nintendo, type of a deal. And now they don't even want to play. They don't even want to play video games. They got their tablet, or they want to go do something, or I don't know. It's crazy, but she's good at it, and so I do think she could probably be droning something up.
Yeah. I've got a 4-H friend of ours. He's a junior at Purdue. He and his buddy just bought a drone. They start in their company. They're going to be doing fungicide and cover crop this year.
Really? There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. Now, you talk about technology. I'm 18 years older than you.
Yeah. A
little bit of math there. Oh, yeah. Our technology was an Atari 2600 and Commodore 64.
Yeah.
That black guy on Pitfall was really high tech.
Yeah.
It's funny how just 30 years.
Yeah.
Think about the technology change your grandfather saw.
Yes.
From when he started in the, 50s? 40s?
Yeah, he would have been probably in the 50s.
To when he finished in 2019. When he went from a John Deere A, Farm M, 2-row planter.
Yeah, and they were farrowing pigs out on pasture and A-huts, and had
and if he did 4,000 pigs, it would have been in 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, I think they just had them on 20 acres, so I don't think that. Yeah, it would have taken several years to get that.
Yeah, not one swath going into barns.
Yeah,
that's just amazing when you think about it, and you think about the technology changes we talked about. It's amazing what we've gone through.
Yeah, it is, and it makes you wonder what's it going to be like, the next 30, 50, 100 years. So
because I'm sure that when your grandfather and your dad saw the first sound guard going, oh, they can't top that. No, that's the
yeah.
And now we got auto steer and
and little did they
refrigerators
know
and combines.
they had life just, to its fullest at that point, because we're still, the crazy thing is we got all this cool technology, but we're still growing a commodity that is literally the fastest to be the cheapest. So we just got to find all these different angles, but
yeah. And I think about that every once in a while because on the low tech spectrum, and I was planting corn, and across the road they were planting corn, brand new planter, all the bells and whistles, and that planter could have bought every piece of machinery I own, just a planter. Yeah, and we were putting this pink seed in the ground, doing the exact same thing. It's interesting.
It's wild. I got a 2-row check planter that we pulled out of the shed that I didn't redo it, but I cleaned it up, and it's hanging from the rafters in our seed shed. It's just kind of cool. I just look at that thing once in a while and be like, man, that's crazy what they used to do.
Do you have the wire?
I don't think we do have the wire, the check wire.
I think my dad has a roll of wire.
Yeah.
That he salvaged from someplace.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just amazing what we've experienced. Are you still selling seed?
I am still selling seed. It's I don't talk about it much. I've got a really good set of customers around the area that have been with me for a long time, and I guess I'm not lighting the world on fire to go get a bunch of new customers. The seed industry has changed a lot. I mean, obviously you heard in the beginning, I really love the seed industry, doing all my internships there and, on the research side, transferring to the sales side. That was one of the things that was on my list of things that if I could come back to the farm, what could I do to help, justify my position? And it was sell seed, and I did. And it's Hogemeyer. When I came back, it was Curry. Which is under the Corteva brand. It's a regional seed company, so we would be west of I-35, Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, maybe a little bit into Missouri.
Hogemeyer advertised in the K-State basketball and football games, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they're big over there. I mean, they're Western Corn Belt, is what their deal is. And, I mean, I've learned a lot, right? Like, we have great seed, but so does the competitors, right? And that's why we have so many different hybrid options. Like, we're spreading our risk. You tell me whether it's going to be a wet or dry or a hot or a cool, what kind of ground it's going on. They're just hedging their bets, Yeah. So, but no, I still do it. Just don't put a ton of effort into trying to grow that business. I was kind of hoping my younger brother is back on the farm now. I was kind of hoping he might, but he just hasn't showed much interest in it either. So it just kind of bumps along right now.
Okay. So is there anything that you can remember? I mean, we talked about the when the switch flicked on your passion for the farm. They're 14, 15 years old.
Yep.
Is there anything that you can recall in your as a youth that set you up to be as impactful or open to the opportunity to jump on the podcast?
Trying to think. I think it probably would have been FFA. Really pushed me to get out of my comfort zone. I did, what was that contest? Exemplarish, or I can't remember.
Oh, the extemporary speaking?
Yeah, that's,
Here's
I did
your topic.
That.
Go talk about it.
Yep. And that really pushed me out of my comfort zone, which I guess I can move this camera. Maybe. There's my jacket right there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And, so I got my state degree. I never did go on to get my, national degree, but FFA just really put me out of my comfort zone to go do things. And that actually led into my schoolwork as well. Then I found myself taking speech class, right? Like, at high school and really enjoying that. And now I have no desire to go give a talk, like Rob Sharkey does. I mean, he's on the road all the dang time. Yeah. I just have no desire to do that. I'm gone enough, but I love getting on the mics, and I just had this passion for things in like sports and like to not be as, how do I politically say this? To not be as polished and prim and proper as like legacy ag media, like like I saw you had Mike Pearson on, who I listened to his dad probably every day growing up, right, Mark? Loved Mark. I loved that Mark brought like a silly side to ag, kind of like he just had this glow about him. And then you'd hear the next guy kind of just read the markets off the same every day, the same, just like, it's like, we don't cuss, we don't drink, we don't mow our yards on Sundays. It's like, yeah, we're guys that we're normal people out here. We like to, maybe bet on sports or have a drink or whatever. Like, we just farm. Like, we're nothing special about us. So, like, let's loosen up a little bit. So I love that side of it. So
you have the experience of spending time with your in-town friends. You have the experience of saying yes to things in FFA that opened you up. And that's one of the things that Mike and I talked about that his dad, Mark, always told him is say yes, as you did. Say yes to something. And you just being a farm kid, extemporaneous speaking is scary as hell. It
very was. I don't know who talked. It had to be my advisor that talked me into that because I know it wouldn't have been any of my friends. So
don't waste your time. Come ride your bike with me.
So that was FFA was very impactful. That's probably where it all started. But then it's like you said, just saying yes to stuff. I always my junior and senior year of high school, I took extracurricular activities or classes at DMAC in Ankeny.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't go take like college credit classes. I got college credit for it, but one was called John Deere Manufacturing, which had nothing to do with John Deere, but we went down and just learned lathes and mills and CNC machines and stuff like that. And just like stuff I never thought I would do. And I really enjoyed that. I could have saw myself going that way. And then the next one I did diesel mechanics. And I remember that professor was like, if anyone ever gives you the opportunity to run something that you've never ran, take the keys and go get in it. Like, you can't screw that much up, like just go do it. Like, figure it out. You're smart, like just say yes. And kind of took that to the rest of my life.
You have that just say yes and the extemporaneous speaking experience that is perfect for a podcast.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where it's going to go. I mean, as we talked about before, I've got my script. It's 3 pages. I haven't looked at it since we started.
That's how you know it's good. You shouldn't have to look at your script. If Tanner was here, he would be on whatever bullet point he had planned, which completely two different brains. And, without him, our podcast it would have never lasted a year because I'm not that as organized as him. But, it takes all shapes and sizes.
Well, it's neat watching the different personalities and how you guys work together. And on that extemporaneous, you fill that role in the podcast. And I think about when the time that you and I are together with Snark at World Pork Expo.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's combustible.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going to go, but we're able to jig and jag and zig and zag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that.
Snark is the best person to go out with because he is he'll talk to anybody. He is the icebreaker for any conversation. So, love having that. Yeah. So when I first met Snark, he bummed a ride with us down to Louisville to the National Farm Machinery Show. He didn't have a hotel or nothing, so he ended up staying in my hotel room. So
no way.
Yeah. Never met the guy, and there's just random drunk guy sleeping in this bed next to me.
Yeah, and he's what 6'3", 240.
Yeah,
big guy.
Yeah, just in there snoring, peeing the bed. Just doing Snark things.
My.
Yeah, but God, he's a smart man. If you can get him honed in, very very sharp.
Well, you can tell he's smart because he flits. His brain can't. You can tell it's always working.
Yep.
Watching you and how you work on the podcast, and we're not going to talk about the podcast itself, but it epitomizes you as a person.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seeing you interact, and it's neat to see how you fit the Iowa mold by having hogs to come back to the farm. Because the whole time I was there that was from 2008 to 2007. That was the heyday of Heartland Pork, Iowa Select. Hey, build a barn, come back to the farm. Build a barn, come back to the farm.
Yep.
And you did it a little bit later, a little bit different way by buying a used barn, but you still did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't know what that opportunity is now because like we talked earlier, it don't make sense. So
even with the manure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you have to have the manure value to make it work, that's probably an issue, you know.
Yeah, you've probably got other management problems.
Well, right. Well, I mean or you just got the barn costs too much, or the rent's not high enough, or the interest is too, like you need that asset it is so corrosive in those barns. I mean, with the salt in the feed and the humidity and that, like, it is not something that is going to last forever. I mean, you can take care of it as well as you can, but like, and it's expensive. You got to put new gates in, which we just did this last summer. I mean, 3 barns, you're looking at over $200,000 probably. It's it's crazy. So
well, then think about your barns when they're built in '98. A 260-pound pig was a big pig, and now you're bringing out 320s. Right?
I had some 320s this last turn. The target is 290, or was 291, I think. But this last.
But if you're going to hit 290, you got some like you said, 320s in that group.
Yeah. This last turn, I turned out 300 some pound pigs in like 5 months. It was freaking nuts.
Crazy. And you've got 200 pigs in a pen? 250?
No, in those large pens, I'm like 130. So
still a lot of pigs in one pen.
Oh yeah. Yep. And we're pre-sorting and doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I've been in the pig industry since 1987 with my first pigs.
Yeah.
And a 240-pound pig was crazy. That's a perfect pig, 240-pounder.
Yeah.
And you're doing 320s in the same time it took me to do 240.
Yeah. I bet they loaded really nice though, 240. I mean, when these pigs get over 300 pounds, they just don't load very good. Like
you're trying to move a sow.
Yeah, they're just stubborn. So, and we don't even have we don't have Paline or anything like that. When they used to pour that crap to them, like, oh, those pigs would just stress out. So I am glad we don't have that anymore. That's nice.
Yeah, it sure changes the demeanor of that pig.
Yeah.
So are there any big plans for you and the podcast or you and individually this year?
Individually, we're kind of transitioning Dad out of management on the farm. So is that a good thing? Yeah, that's a good thing. One of my biggest frustrations, and my dad and I have had a lot of conversations about it, was, he was just getting the reins from my grandpa, when he was like 59 years old, or, late 50s. Like, so he really hasn't been in charge that long, but he recognizes that, maybe that's not the way that he wants it to go, like that old mentality of you're going to farm till you're dead and then pass it down to your 70-year-old son or daughter, like it's a little odd, you know? So, hard, because I have gotten more conservative in my business just from 25 to 35, 36, right? Like, just not willing to take as many risks. Like, think about it if you're taking it over at 65 or 70. Like, do you really want to grow the operation or, or just keep on doing what works, right?
Oh, yeah. We're happy at our 800 acres or whatever. And yeah.
So that's probably the biggest thing. Dad, like I said, Dad was always, he's so good in the office. He's so good with the technology. And we've actually taken the Colby test. I don't know if you've ever taken any of those personality tests. And like my dad and my brother are the same.
Okay.
And then my mom and I are the same. And we're like completely opposite. Like I'm the guy that's messy in the shop. Like I got tools scattered everywhere, but I know where everything's at. And they're like, no, it needs to be like organized and all this. So we stress each other out. But like I can't sit in the office. Like I struggle. And I know how important it is. So I will. But man, it stresses me out. It takes me 4 times longer to do something than it should. I'm a procrastinator. So I am looking at trying to replace Dad with like more of like a fractional CFO.
Okay.
Even though my brother's good with numbers, but I kind of need him for labor. Like he's actually 7 or 8 years younger than me. And so like I need him out helping. right? And then I'm trying to run it more like a business, as you should. Like that's what we preach on the podcast, Farm for Profit. You know, well, maybe we should practice what we preach.
Yeah.
Well, if I had my numbers at my fingertips at any time, you know, how much better of a manager am I going to be? And I hate how many times where we say, I feel like we need a new tractor. I feel like we should upgrade semis. I feel like we should market corn today. Like, I hate that. And we've gotten pretty good. We have a good sixth sense as farmers. You know, that's a lot of people have that, you know, like, but I mean, boy, you want to make a bad decision with these equipment prices and these interest rates. I mean, you're going to get caught at some point and have an issue. So I just think of like, if I could not spend so much time in the office, but still have better numbers, I could be spending that time with landlords, relationships. I could go be cleaning up farms. I could be a better agronomist. I could market grain better, all this kind of stuff. So that's probably the two things, the transition and then get that. We've started that process actually, and Dad's excited for it. Like to be able to do that when he is still sharp in mind and still very much in control, I think it feels like it's going to be huge. And because we've had the conversation of, if he dies next week, we're screwed. We're absolutely. I mean, we'll figure it out, but we're screwed. Like I don't know all the.
It's going to hurt you.
Yeah, I don't know all the crap that he's got going. In the office. And we tried getting my brother in that role. My dad would go sit there till 10 o'clock at night. And my brother's not gonna go down there and sit with him at that time. He's got his own young family and all that kind of stuff. So. Podcast wise, we've got some cool things on the horizon. I mean, I don't think it's a secret that we've monetized, right? We have partners and ads. We try to keep that to a minimum. So the podcast is really tapped out. We will only work with like 3 or 4 ads per show because we just do not want. We want the show to be authentic. We do not want it to be just a big ad, and so that's kind of capped what we could make in that realm. So we've done some other things, some consulting, some running some social medias and things like that in the background that we really haven't put out there, but we are doing that stuff. I mean, we learned all this stuff organically. We had a call with Rob Sharkey, Tanner did in the beginning on like, kind of like you and I had, what kind of equipment do you have? And great guy, willing to help and all that, got us going. But then we kind of didn't use any of the stuff, any of his editing software. We just figured it all out on our own. And then video comes into it. And then we're like, how the heck are we going to do this? And I bet we've got a dozen cameras because Tanner's also a very cheap, frugal individual. And like, well, we could just get this, if there's a $400 camera, but there's a $200 one, it's like, and it's fuzzy, and it's like, so we've just had this stair step, and naturally, like we did it like you should, right? Like we didn't go get a loan, we didn't have some company back us, we just paid for what we could afford as we could, and as we could afford better and nicer things, we've upgraded. But I've always been like, we got to have better quality, right? Like I see Joe Rogan's podcast or whatever, out there, and it's like, no, we need clearer video. So video changed the game there, but. So probably just, looking at different revenue opportunities there because it has become a business.
Do you envision more employees or having employees?
We have 10 employees that are part-time or full-time. So,
audience, you can tell I did not do my due diligence and search hard enough. We
don't say that quite a bit. I mean, most of them are part-time. We hired a full-time chief marketing officer, Rachel Zumbaugh, last fall. She previously worked for Iowa Corn. She actually handled us at doing the NASCAR race. We covered that. We interviewed Richard Childress and Ross Chastain down there in Newton, and she was fantastic. And we were just like, Tanner's done a lot of the editing, and we've done a lot of the back business type stuff. And it got to the point where we were spending a lot of hours a day doing this and still trying to farm and do this other stuff. And it's like, I don't think I'm ever going to quit farming. I think that brings me validity on the podcast, right? Like how could I quit farming and go podcast, even though I love podcasting? How could I do that and feel right talking about where input prices are, or
you would quickly turn into the has-been.
Yeah. Yeah. So it keeps me real. But Rachel's been amazing.
That's neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm 20. This will be 24th episode. Yours is.
Yeah.
And I use Reaper, so I do my own editing. So I'm a little beyond just taking in. So I've been complimented by a couple people. It sounds good, but as long as we talk, it's at least that much to edit. Oh, and I can't imagine what you guys are doing.
It's probably multiples. I mean, in the beginning, especially if you get a guest that, maybe hasn't been on a podcast before and has a lot of uhs and ums and, that kind of stuff. Every minute of raw, you're editing at least 3, at times, right? So people don't understand that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, which time is our most valuable asset. Yes, it's not physical. Yes, you're not shoveling hog poop.
It's time, but it's mental, and
it is.
You have a headset on. Typically, you're listening. You got that weighting on your head, and you're trying to pay attention. You listen. Yep. I did one that I edited, and the speaker would pop their lips, and you could see the spike. They even had a pop filter. You would go along, and you get in the flow, and then the next thing you know, you heard it, and you had to stop. And you back up and find that spike, and you've been through it.
We've been through it. The most freeing thing was, and one of the most difficult decisions we ever did on the podcast was giving up control. We don't edit our own audio. We don't edit our own video anymore. We have team members that do that. Like last night's show with Zach, Tanner will edit that one. No doubt in my mind, because there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot of things that get us canceled, and that will, that like the raw show of that one probably needs to go behind like a paywall. Like if you want to hear the raw, uncut, unfiltered,
you can put that on OnlyFans.
Yeah. You're gonna be paying some money for that because that's got a lot of bad stuff in it.
And I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I knew it was tough when you turned the camera and the only thing you saw was the picture.
The picture, which I am looking at right now to my left. The picture. Yeah.
At what point in your farming career did you think, I can make it as a farmer? Was it when you bought the pig barns, or was it when you got your first pigs, or was it before then?
I think I always knew I could. Like, I've always been fairly confident in if I could just get my foot in the door, right? Like, I know I can, like, I've got the agronomic knowledge. I've got the farming background. I can run the equipment and all that. And I'd have people, if I don't know it, I have a great team around me that is very valuable. I was just scared. Not scared. I just could never get that opportunity. So it was probably after we got the hog barns and probably got our first group of pigs through there and figured out that, we can do this. Cause like I said, I had pigs growing up, like for 4-H and FFA, show pigs. I'd been in a hog barn. I've helped load some hogs before. I'd never taken care of them.
Oh yeah. There's a huge difference between that belted pig that you're babying every day and, oh no, I've got 1,500 of them and they just started coughing. Yeah.
And then, shortly after that was when PED came out.
And
that was just a crazy thing. But there's someone in here. Yeah, he was just waving at me. But that's what you get when you have a studio in town. People just kind of pop in once in a while. Need my on-air sign.
They want to see the detritus from last night.
Yeah. But that PED came in, and I can't remember what we lost, 20-30% or something like that. And it was like
that was a crazy time.
Yeah. It was, but PERS ended up being worse. A new strain of PERS at one point, and we lost like 65% that day, or that time. So,
those are things that we live in the pig industry that some of us don't want to relive, but we will relive them because it's the pig industry.
Yeah, it is.
On the podcast side, at what point did you guys think this is more than us just getting together and chatting?
So I came on in 2020. Yeah, that was May, June of 2020. They started in May, June of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably 21 or 22. We actually went to our first show and had someone that wanted to, Sukup Manufacturing wanted to pay us to come down to the National Farm Machinery Show and film the podcast from their booth. And
you said 22?
I think it might have been 22. 22, 20, let's see. 22 and 23, we went there. 24, we went to Tulare, California. So, yeah, it would have been 22 because this would have been our third year at National Farm Machinery Show in 25.
Okay.
So,
could you skip a year because of Tulare?
Yep. Yeah, we went out there. That was cool. Yeah, that was probably it when they actually wanted to pay. Like, what? You're going to, and it wasn't good money. Don't tell me. Like, at the time, we were like, oh, someone's going to pay us to do this.
Yeah, they're going to buy us a hotel room and supper.
Yeah, we're doing this we're doing this for free. We're just getting together with our buddies and drinking a beer or two and having a good time. And
so you did it a full 2 years, or just short of a full 2 years of talking into the ether.
Yeah, which there was other moments in there where it was like, this is big. It's probably bigger than what we think it is. Getting like the Bush Light Combine and doing social media, blowing it up. But that was just more like just cool meeting people that you otherwise would normally not have access to.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool.
So that first show where you got paid professional was kind of the inflection point for you.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, you could actually make this a business, and then you quickly. You quickly realize why companies want to work with you, and how much advertising costs, like in other realms, what a 1-page ad in a farm magazine costs for 1 month. It will just blow your mind. And then they give you these metrics and you start digging into you start nerding out on that. And you're like, wait, we have that many, and a podcast and social media is an extremely precise metric. I mean, we know how long you listened. We know what street you listened on. We know your age. We know, it's kind of scary,
Yeah.
But the companies love that, and if you're listening to a podcast, you're there because you want to be, right? If you're listening to this right now, you had to go open your podcast app and click listen. It wasn't, you didn't turn it to 97.3 and get some roofing ad on the radio. So,
so that makes that listener that much more valuable because you know who that listener is.
Yeah, and if it's in their that company's wheelhouse of we had a survey out right now that says I think it's over 40% of our listeners have purchased something or made a decision on a purchase because of something a partner that we've had on the podcast.
Oh my, that is powerful to go to new advertisers.
Yeah, it's
or keep the ones you have.
We get 5 to 7 new inquiries a day right now. And that's why we had to hire Rachel on we were just having so many exploratory calls and flushing a lot of them, right? Like we could work with 10 different biological companies right now.
Oh God.
And it just, so we can't, and I'm like, you know what? I used to sell against Ag Explore when I was at Helena Chemical.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, they have some biologicals, but they also have methylated seed oil and crop oil and, adjuvants and that kind of stuff. Like they're a legit company that's been around since the late 90s. And like, I know they're good guys. So like, let's just
not made in a bathtub.
Yeah. They reach out to us. Let's pick one solid one and just roll with it, because as soon as you start having all these biological companies, you just water yourself down. You're just a sellout, and and that's great. Go get your money if that's what you want. But
that's a nice thing about having your 3 different personalities and experiences.
Yeah. Yep.
Kind of have some gates and to keep yourself
right. Right. Yep.
Well, it's fun watching you as we started being friends on Twitter.
Yeah,
a decade ago or where it was, and watching you grow in both your farm and the podcast. And I envision down the road having all 3 of you as my guests to kind of chat. And this is fun. But at the end of every podcast, we have 5 questions.
Okay.
So are you prepared for the 5 questions?
Sure.
There you go. That's a perfect answer. That means there's going to be. It's
Do I have a choice?
No. Yeah. No, you don't. You're like, oh wait, the wife just called. I gotta go.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's that? The connection's getting bad now.
Yeah. What is one lesson from ag that you carry with you every day?
Oh, it's got to be that just say yes thing that I talked about earlier. That I got from my professor in diesel mechanics. Just say yes. Have the conversation. You can always flush it later.
I like your example of get in the machine if they tell you to get in it.
Right. Like if they're giving you the opportunity to go run an excavator that you've never ran before, it's like, you can't screw that much stuff up. Just go do it.
The excavator can be metaphor for all kinds of things. So
yeah,
like your daughter running a drone.
Yeah. Yeah. She has no recollection of that thing's a $3,000 drone and that she's just flying this thing around and could just, ruin it.
Yeah. And doing better
there's
than
so many
you
safety
can.
things. There's so many safety things on it. Like she can't screw that much up.
Say yes. I like that.
Yep.
If you could have coffee with any historical figure in ag or ag media, who would it be?
Ooh. Dead or alive?
Anybody, dead or alive.
I have to go back to like Norman Borlaug, probably. I mean, I see down in Des Moines, they got that. I can't think of the name of the building now, but there's a lot of
the
his
food
stuff
prize
there. Yeah, the World Food Prize building. A lot of stuff of his there, and we had a lot of stuff at Iowa State. Like someone that was so pivotal to agriculture would be pretty cool to sit down with.
Okay, so I think I've asked 12 or 13 people that. You're number 3 to say Norman Borlaug.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I should have done my research and came up with something else.
No, it's perfect because it fits in with influential ag people, and I think more people need to understand how influential it was. Now we can discuss the implications long term of saving all those people and hybridization and all, but that's a good one. And I've been to his home place.
Okay.
Outside of Protivin. It's really neat. It's just an old farmhouse.
Yep.
What is one underappreciated or quirky thing about ag or ag podcasting that people should know?
Underappreciated. I don't know that they need to know it about how much work goes into it. We talked about that. I mean, there's a lot of time and work. I do not like it when people just think, well, you just sit there and make money just talking, you don't do nothing, you don't work hard. I was like, there's a trade-off. But let's see. Underappreciated. I think there needs to be more. I think there needs to be more ag podcasts. And I don't know that that's really that quirky, but like, I hate it when people go, oh, you see that new podcast? You got more competitors. It's like, you do realize if we spend so much time alone farming, whether it's in a tractor, semi, doing chores, that you could listen to the top 10 podcasts on Monday morning in ag, and you would be through all of the good ones. Like we need more. There needs to be more content out there.
Oh yeah. And I think about my podcast stream that I have saved. Aside from the cereals, like Chip Flory's Ag Talk cereal, we could do it in a day. The good ones.
Yep. Yeah. So that's why we went to 2 a week. I mean, it's still not a lot, but it's like we had this list of guests that keep getting bigger. We felt like we could do it, and that was great that we did that. It made a lot more work, doubled the work for us.
Yeah. But you couldn't do it yourself. No. 2 a week.
No.
And definitely one a day you couldn't do yourself, the 3 of you.
No. Not with our current schedules. No. Nope.
The other thing, on a side note, that I found myself thinking, oh, that'd be great to talk about. Oh, that'd be great to talk about driving down the road. And you're going, oh, I've got a list of ideas and guests that I'll never get to.
Yep. Well, and what you'll find is as you grow and you get more listeners and you ask for their input, you'll have this list, which is great to fall back on. But once you start taking suggestions from the listeners, what they want to hear, who they want to hear, that's when you actually really start to grow, because it's what people want to hear, right? Yeah. You might have thought that they wanted to hear this, but they actually wanted to hear that, type of a deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yep.
Like whether it's a post on Twitter or LinkedIn or a guest here, this is going to be a great one. Like, oh yeah, 24 people listen to it.
Yeah. Probably the biggest frustrating thing about our podcast is we record them all usually at a minimum 2 weeks ahead of time. But like right now, we use these trade shows to stock up content.
Yeah.
So when it's planting time, I don't have to be in here. I want to be farming. And so we have to be cognizant of, it has to be timeless, right? Yeah. Or know exactly when it's coming out. Like, so we can't just go sit there and talk about what was in the news today, what the markets did today, all that much, because it would just be old before it came out.
Well, and that's a good thing about the way that you set your podcast up, and I'm trying to set it up. It's not news.
Yeah.
I mean, listen to Chip every day, or listen, get on Oliver Slope and Joe Vlacliflick. They do a much better job of it. They're more connected than we are. Yep.
I thought of a different one, quirky one for podcasts as well. Is I've said this before, and I will never. So I'm going to contradict myself that we need more content. I find it funny that all these companies see the success that podcasts have, and then they go, oh, we're going to put our own podcast out. And they're going to have their employee doing it because they're already paying them, so they might as well, and they can go buy the equipment. It's not that expensive. But then they'll sit there and tell us we're too expensive or, something like that. But it's like they don't get that we're authentic, and we could, if you guys screw us over, we could say, screw that company. They did this, like people aren't, you're never going to get the traction that you want out of that. If you want to use it as a sales tool or anything like that, because everyone knows it's an ad for your company, no matter what you're saying. So, yeah. But I do think they have value, especially I've listened to a couple for some outside of ag podcasts, some construction companies of some buddies of mine. They do it for their employees. And they don't care that they're not trying to get a bunch of sales or a bunch of downloads on it. They're just like, this is what the company's doing. So everyone's on the same page. They do like birthdays once a month, and, it's like a camaraderie thing, keep the morale up. And I was like, that's cool. That is a perfect company use.
The last question: what is one small change that could make a huge impact to agriculture's future?
Wow, this is some deep stuff. I'd say now that I've been through the young part and some of the middle part, give that young kid a chance. Whether it's if you're in your older age, instead of renting it out, your farm out to the next big guy, give that young kid that's hungry, a chance, and try to get some good back into things here, because it's man, it took a lot of wind out of my sails. I said that earlier in the podcast. I was so passionate, and I still am passionate. But man, if I could have got some opportunities before, I had to buy the hog barn or whatever, which I'm glad the trajectory I'm on now. But I just think about how things could have been different, or that kind of stuff. So just give that young kid a chance that wants to be in it. If they're passionate about it, let them fly.
We're a very competitive, friendly business.
Yes. Very much so. Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see that, get back to, that neighborly way of how it used to be, because it does feel really cutthroat in certain situations out there. That's
well, I talked with AJ Fridges from Northeast Iowa. We're all about neighbors when John dies and Widow Johnson needs 50 people to come harvest 900 acres of corn on a Saturday afternoon. But when Widow Johnson's son wants to farm, it's like, oh.
Yep.
Oh, I'll go get it from him. I know I can pay more than he can.
I do. I haven't done it for a while, but I do a segment on my personal TikTok called John at Staple Farms that kind of portrays a lot of those not so great situations of ambulance chasing and going up to a widow at a funeral, or like that kind of stuff. It's just like kind of making a little comic relief out of it, but it's absolutely crazy. It happens.
They're very poignant.
It happens.
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, Corey, this has been fun. And now that I don't go to Iowa as much, I don't get to see you.
Yeah.
I need to make a point to it. But I appreciate you being open with me and sharing your background and teasing about what's going on with the podcast. But more importantly, get an idea of how your ag roots, growing up on the farm, wanting to be in town, FFA, and how that all molded you.
Yep.
And those experiences that made you say yes to things. Yes. So I appreciate you sharing those. Those are great lessons for my listeners.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you having me on. I enjoy having the camera and mic turned around and not having to be the one asking the questions. So it's kind of fun.
It takes a little bit of pressure off of you.
Yeah.
So to my listeners, here is yet another conversation where we dove deep into somebody's agricultural roots to get an idea of how those roots affected them today and made them the people that they are. Corey's roots in ag are making a huge impact, and he's going to have a bigger impact with him and his team, and I look forward to what he does for us. Stay tuned. Got a couple more big fish in the pot that we're going to be able to talk to in the next couple weeks as we dive deeper into people's ag roots.